Okay. So reading number one. How much power should the federal government have? Julian, my friend, go ahead and get us started here. There you go. Starting here.
Start out where?
We're starting here with reading number one. So I asked the question, how much power should the central government have? And you're starting right here.
Both of the federalistic and anti-federalistic one, one, wanted states and on the levels of the government part of a principle known as federalism. However,
Disagree.
disagree on how much power each level of the government should have.
Thank you, sir. Very good. Okay, so we know we're talking about the Federalists and Anti-Federalism. What's the disagreement here? How much power should each one of them have? Okay, that's where we're starting. All right, Jordan, go ahead and pick up there with Anti-Federalists.
Anti-Federalists tend to favor a weak central government of the United States as it was under the Articles of Confederation. The Anti-Federalists believe that the Constitution will give too much power to the national government and not enough to the states, which will threaten the rights of people. They believe that the state's government should have more power to the central government because they are closer and more responsive to the people.
Very good. Thank you, sir. So we start with the Anti-Federalist. Anti, guys, just means you are against something. So in this instance, the Anti-Federalists are against a strong central government. They said we want the central government to be weak and more power to lie in the states, okay? They were the advocates. They were fighters for more power being at the state level and not at a federal government level, okay? All right. Donovan, go ahead and finish in that paragraph by contrast.
By contrast, a national government that could act forcefully to maintain order and provide security and they wanted power to be shared and divided between states and the central government. They believe that the central government should have authority over the states. States would not be able to ignore laws in the national government.
Federalists?
Supported the Constitution because it will give more power to federal government than it had under the article of.
Thank you. Very good. So, unlike the Anti-Federalists who said the power belongs to the states, Federalists said we want a strong central government. The central government at a whole should have more power. The states can have a little bit of power, but they felt like the central government, a strong federal government, would provide more security, and that would be better for our country. With the states would not be able to ignore laws at the national level if the national government had more power. Okay, the easiest way to remember this, guys, is federalism. Federal means national, the whole nation, right, covering the entire United States. So they wanted all the power to be at a national level. And the Anti-Federalist, anti means you are against something. They said no, power should be with the states. Okay, power belongs to the individual states, and the federal government could exist, but not tell the states what to do. Yes, sir. Yes, there is. Okay, we're about to get into it. So that was about power, okay? So we just talked about the difference between the powers between Anti-Federalists and Federalists, right? Anti-Federalists said belongs to the states. States should have more power. Federalists said no, federal government, the national government should have more power. Now we will talk about how people's rights will be protected. So protection of people under the difference between Anti-Federalists and Federalists in that aspect. You want to read? All right, well, go ahead, Jordan.
Anti-Federalists
Criticize
the Constitution because it lacks the ability to guarantee civil liberties of the people against the power of government officials. They believe that individuals should have specific freedoms to protect them against potential government abuse. They wanted freedom such as freedom of speech, religious freedom, and rights done a child be listed in a bill.
Very good. And y'all know these. These are the Bill of Rights. I got you next, Carrie. Okay, these are those things that you guys made that video about, right? Those 10 individual rights, those civil liberties. They said we shouldn't have those spelled out specifically in the Constitution. Okay, people should know what their individual rights are. So the Anti-Federalists were big on states having more power and individual rights being directly expressed in the Constitution. Okay, on the other hand, what did the Federalists say? Go ahead, Carrie.
Federalists agreed that a Bill of Rights was not necessary because the natural government had only those powers limited to in the countries. They agreed that.
Go ahead, you doing just fine. Keep going.
I'm gonna let you listen. You read. They agreed that the government was not limited to
Deprive, and that means take away. Keep going.
They said
Deprive individuals.
individual of their
Basic civil liberties. So those are just those basic rights that we have as human beings. All right, go ahead. You can stop there, Elijah. Go ahead and finish that for us. Thank you, Carrie. Good job, sir. Right here. Ultimately,
the federalism agreed to add a Bill of Rights to the Constitution in order to gain support for ratification.
very good, guys. Thank you, sir. All right, so ratification means to approve it, right? So these Federalists sat there with their arms folded and they said, until y'all put this Bill of Rights in the Constitution, we're not agreeing to it. We're not signing it because we want those individual rights that people have to be listed specifically in the Constitution. The Federalists said, you don't need that. They argued that a Bill of Rights wasn't necessary because we've already established what powers are going to be given to the states and to the people in the Constitution. Anti-Federalists said, that's not good enough. We wanted to specifically say you have the right to freedom of speech. You have the right to bear arms, right? Those things that you guys learned last week. They wanted it to be listed specifically in the Constitution. So to avoid another argument over this document, because at this point, guys, they've been at this constitutional convention for like 2 months. They're away from their families. They're away from their businesses. They've been spending all this time locked in the room together day after day discussing this Constitution. At this point, everybody's ready to agree on this thing and go home. So the Federalists said, okay, if this makes you guys happy, we'll add a Bill of Rights, okay? If it makes you feel better about this document being signed, ratified, we will go ahead and put a Bill of Rights in there, listing out the specific things that we want, the individual rights that we want people to have. All right, so then again, another compromise was made. Okay, I'm going to show you a video first. It's going to be about the Federalist Papers. So the Federalist Papers, obviously written by the Federalists, was just a kind of like a magazine essays that were written. They were actually posted in the newspaper over a period of time. The Federalists wrote these essays trying to convince people to ratify this Constitution, to buy into this idea of having this document that's going to govern our country, giving the federal government most of the power, okay? So it was a series of essays, just kind of like persuading people to agree to this Constitution. Some of the most popular Federalists, as they will mention here, Alexander Hamilton. So guys, you know Hamilton's a really big play right now that's on Disney Plus. If you haven't seen it, Alexander Hamilton was one of the biggest Federalists there was, to the point where he headed the federal bank. You guys will get into that in a few weeks. So they will talk about some of those Federalists in this one. And then the second video that we'll watch will be about the Anti-Federalists and how they wanted their Bill of Rights. They weren't going to go home until there was a Bill of Rights in that Constitution. Okay. Make sure I'm sharing my sound. Yes.
Where did you get the mask?
This mask? Adidas. I had ordered online. But it was a pack of 3 for like $17. No, it wasn't too bad. Okay, hold on. Let's see. And it's waterproof. So when I was going to Hurricane Harbor in the summer.
In the years since the American Revolution, the United States faced a challenge very different than the one it had faced while fighting the British Army. Now, its leaders had to figure out how they would govern their newly independent nation. A young statesman from Virginia named James Madison rose to the challenge, not only as a vocal supporter of a written constitution, but also as a contributor to the Federalist Papers, one of the earliest expressions of American political theory. It happened during the meeting to draft the Constitution, later called the Constitutional Convention, that began in May of 1787 in the city of Philadelphia. While the delegates debated what should be included in this new Constitution, was recruited by Alexander Hamilton
Out. It's the weirdest thing ever.
and John Jay of New York later called the Constitutional Convention that began in May of 1787 in the city of Philadelphia. While the delegates debated what should be included in this new Constitution, Madison was recruited by Alexander Hamilton and John Jay of New York to help promote its ratification. Together, they wrote the Federalist Papers, a series of 85 articles and essays. The Federalist Papers appeared in 3 newspapers and were written using the pen name Publius, a reference to the Roman Republic. Madison wrote roughly 1/3 of the 85 articles. In Federalist 10, Madison warned about factions or groups of citizens with interests that differ from the interests of the nation as a whole. Madison believed that a large republic is the best way to prevent factions. Voters in a large republic have a bigger pool of candidates to choose from, which increases the chance that a competent representative will be selected. To this day, Federalist 10 is considered one of the greatest pieces of American political writing. In Federalist 51, Madison laid out the framework for the system of checks and balances, which allowed each of the 3 branches of the federal government to check the power of one another. In Federalist 54, Madison also addressed the issue of slavery in population surveys. It stated that slaves would be considered 3/5 of a person. This is the same idea behind the 3/5 compromise. While this sounds controversial today, it was critical at the time because it helped get the southern slave states to ratify the Constitution. As the Constitutional Convention continued, Madison also proved to be an influential and frequent participant, speaking over 200 times. Fellow Delegate William Pierce of Georgia wrote, "Every person seems to acknowledge his greatness. He blends together the profound politician with the scholar. He always comes forward the best informed man of any point in debate." After months of debate and deliberation, the delegates signed the Constitution on September 17, 1787, and then sent it on to the states for ratification. James Madison went on to serve as Secretary of State under President Thomas Jefferson and was the 4th President of the United States. But to this day, he is also remembered for his influence on American political theory in the Federalist Papers.
More about Madison in the coming weeks as we start talking about the president. He will be president number 4. Lots happened in his presidency, but before that, he was one of the major Federalists in getting the Constitution ratified by the states. Okay, George Washington. We will start on old Georgie Porgy next week.
How long was he the first president?
because he was picked to be first president because of his, remember, he was the leader of our Revolutionary War. Remember the whole war we fought to break free from Britain? He led the entire army for that war. Yep. So because of his great war efforts and his great leadership, he was hand chosen to be the first president of our new nation. Okay. This video talks about, on the other hand, the anti-federalists and what they wanted, right? So the Federalists, we know, wanted a strong central government. They wrote those Federalist Papers and convinced everyone to ratify, to agree to the Constitution. Meanwhile, we have the anti-federalists who's sitting back like, we're not ratifying anything until you put in a Bill of Rights. And this is how it kind of went down and how the Bill of Rights gets added.
Where's the Bill of Rights?
Oh, wait a minute.
This government is.
I was at the press. Okay, over here.
Where's the Bill of Rights? This government is starting of what rights it can infringe that belong to the people. And here, the men who wrote the Constitution really don't mean to be tyrannical. They're just tired. They've been living in taverns, sleeping 3 to a bed, eating tavern food in Philadelphia, which is hot as anything and humid. They're far away from their families. They're away from their businesses, their plantations, their legal practices. So they're putting in a lot of time that is uncomfortable. And they've debated and argued and debated and argued and met in committees, and they work 5 days a week from 10 to 3. And they want to go home. And at the very last minute, someone says, wait a minute, we should have a Bill of Rights. A Declaration of Rights, they call it. The groans are audible. Oh my, if we start this, we'll be here 2 more months. Everybody will have a different one they want. We'll have to argue about every one of them. And then someone says, we don't need a Declaration of Rights. All the states have them. So that's already taken care of. Let's go home. Well, the anti-federalists pick up on this. And they don't know what happened in the convention, right? Because it was secret. So they say, this is a plot. They've created a strong national government. It's going to tax us all the time. It's going to make wars. It's going to take away our rights. And see, they don't guarantee us any rights. So in the Massachusetts Convention, the Federalists come up with a compromise. They say, let's ratify conditionally, on the condition that the first thing the government will do is create a Bill of Rights. And from then on, states ratify with the understanding that there will be a Bill of Rights.
To go back and add a Bill of Rights that states specifically what rights it should have. And so everybody in the states are okay, they start to agree to it, and then they sign off on it, and then we come back, as we know, in 1789, the next year, and they ratify, they add the Bill of Rights. And those are those freedom of speech, right to bear arms, all those rights you have when you're accused of a crime, the right to remain silent, all those beautiful things you guys learned last week were added once they made an agreement with the anti-federalists that they would add those Bill of Rights just to make them happy and wrap up this convention. Okay. All right. So within this reading passages, you need to read the issue and click which one matches with it. So the first one, for instance, says, what were the views about the Articles of Confederation? Did the Federalists say that the Articles were too weak and needed to be replaced with a stronger government? Or did the Federalists say the Articles should be amended but remain in place? So we will go back to our reading. We know that the Federalists were against the Articles of Confederation, right? They said they were weak and needed to be replaced with a strong central government. We know that because it tells us right here. Federalists supported the Constitution because it gives much more power to the federal government than it had under the Articles of Confederation. Okay, so then you would click that because that's the scenario that matches with the Federalists. All right, you're going to do that for the next, I think there's 4 within this set. And then your actual assignment for today is who said it? All right, so you're going to match the statement that is being made with, was it a Federalist or Anti-Federalist? So let's look at the first one and do it together. It says, I believe in a strong central government. Who's that going to be? All right, very good, right? Federalist, because the Federalist said the power should belong with the national government. We know Anti-Federalist said, nope, it belongs to the states, okay? All right, so you go ahead and match those who am I with either Federalist or Anti-Federalist. When you are done, I guys, because I know Friday the Canvas had some issues, so there's a Bill of Rights quiz that you guys need to take. There's also a homework quizzes assignment that is due tomorrow. So if you have not completed those two things, I've already Canvas inboxed you with the link to complete those assignments. So work on what you can once you are done with today's assignments on Federalist versus Anti-Federalist. Who said it? All right, any questions? Guys got about 20 minutes, so I think that's more than enough time to get most of that done. Some of you have already completed the quizzes homework, so good job there. That's one less thing you have to do. All right, so go ahead and get busy, guys.